Hi everyone, in this video interview we're having a look at family, and family within the context of utilizing an analogy of a seed growing into a tree and the tree bearing fruit. Now this is basically the context of what happens with two human beings having sex and growing a baby, and that baby in its growth period within the mother in the womb is like the tree growing within its trunk and growing out into the branches and the leaves, and the whole family system and generation rooting and integrating into the human physical body of the baby as the mind consciousness system. Now again, we're referencing in terms of how this manifested within the old system, where the being was integrated into a mind consciousness system, where the mind consciousness system was the download and constitution of the total family system and generations that has gone before that child. And now in terms of what is being born within the human physical body is the totality of the parents in creating themselves as this human physical form. So it's no more a separate mind consciousness system that manifests. It is an actual creation that represents self in totality. We have done interviews about this. We will include it in the description box for self to have a reference in terms of how the birth and manifested consequence happen now within the process of inversion. Okay, let's go back to, we're now with human beings at the moment facing family within process especially, and we're required to have you consider this point in how one is in fact a tree of life within one's total setup, and who one is, how one is, and what one lives within being the representation of one's total family system and generations that has gone before self. Where, for example, the roots of the tree is one's roots in family, culture, family system, family generations. The trunk of the tree, one's actual manifestation of one's living within and through one's human physical body, as how one has created, programmed, and manifested one's personalities, one's mannerisms, one's behavior, one's decisions, one's choices. And then the branches and the tree in the fruit it bears is one's actual living out of oneself as one's family system and generation that is rooted into one's total human physical body as oneself, which is the basic manifestation of and within one's actual genes of one's human physical body and oneself as the mind consciousness system, because that whole point is integrated and manifested to such an extent that it is self. You are a product of your family in the totality of how you are integrated and rooted and growing and bearing fruit within yourself and your living. So realize, see and understand that what we have, the fruit that we have borne within our living, our participation, our expression within the world as who we are, what we do, how we do it, what we live, how we live, has been because of and due to the genes, the generations that has gone before us. We have been growing, developing, and bearing the fruit of the past, of the copied, imitated, and duplicated sins of the fathers, and we have been producing the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We have been throughout generations replaying over and over and over again the scenario of Adam and Eve, where we have been picking from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If one have a look at our very manifestation of the mind consciousness system as who we are, as what we grow into, as what we become and what we live out, it's knowledge and information, it's concepts, it's ideas, it's perceptions, it's beliefs, it's knowledge and information in itself in terms of the education that we receive from school, from media, from parents, from peers, from everything and everyone that we simply automatically integrate, that we update, that we personify, that we alter, mold, change according to our personality suits, that we have also manifested in accordance to and with the backdrop of our total family system and generations that's gone before us. And one can have a look at that whole scenario with God, Adam and Eve, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, where we can say God is the physical. And we are within ourselves at that point of Adam and Eve, in where we have accepted and allowed ourselves to live within that curiosity of and for and thirst of and for knowledge and information, where we have not in fact lived with and within the human physical body in and as equality and oneness, where our living has not been here with our bodies, but there within our mind consciousness systems, within knowledge and information. And within that manifested the total separation, where we have excluded ourselves from the Garden of Eden, which is the garden of life, of living, that is here within and as the human physical body. And we are now living the manifested consequence within the system as our mind consciousness system and the world system, in accepting and allowing ourselves to have eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, meaning the tree of knowledge of good and evil being the basic representation of the total mind consciousness system design in how it functions within and through polarities, within and through rules, regulations, laws, structures, systems, and how we have accordingly aligned ourselves within that system of living instead of physical, real life living. So when facing family, realize that what you are in this moment within your very manifestation as the roots, the trunk, the branches, the tree, the fruit, you've been living your family system within yourself as yourself. It's been what you've been living out. So one cannot expect oneself within facing family to want to change your family, to want to save your family, to want to rescue your family in terms of assisting and supporting them as you are walking your process of self-equality and oneness, from getting out of the system into the physical, where you will and are now basically busy with the process of rooting yourself into the human physical body, the trunk, as you growing and expanding into the physical, into equality and oneness with all and everything, and your actual branches and tree as the fruit that you bear is best for all, where you are in fact equal and one in your living, in what you are growing as the actual real tree of life as you. So in terms of facing family, realize that you first got to sort the family out that is you within yourself. So that stays and remains within the context of being watchful of the tendency to want to change others before self, in fact, practically really changing for self, and to within that be watchful of the tendency to fall in that trap of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, in wanting to produce knowledge and information that you share with your family and with your friends, with not in fact being the physical, real, living example of how it is that you are being and becoming the living word of in fact changing you. Because if you're just going to share with them knowledge and information, it's obviously going to be very easy to negate that, to fight that, to come up with other knowledge and information, comebacks, responses, replies, and retorts, because you're giving them the very fuel that they consist of and exist as knowledge and information. Therefore, it is not necessary to create unnecessary conflicts, problems, outflows, situations and experiences with your family, because what this process is about self first in totality. To be able to in fact help your family or assist and support your family as yourself, you've got to understand your family as yourself. You've got to be equal to and one with your family within you. I mean, how in any way are you going to assist another human being in fact without really understanding, seeing, experiencing and being them in the totality of how they think, how they act, why it is that they are who and how they are, their past, their history, their relationships, everything that accumulated into the being that is standing here before you. There is no way you're going to assist and support a human being without in fact knowing, understanding the totality of them as you equal and one. Therefore, with facing family, it is to first transform that tree within self as and within that is manifested into the genes of your human physical body as the generations that you are manifested as and representing, which means, because it's to the extent manifested in the very genes of ourselves as the human physical body, it's going to take a process of application, patience and time, because you've physically got to change you in the totality of how you live. You've got to become a living example where what is within is equal and one without, where what you speak is what you live. You are exposed standing here in being equal and one in fact in the totality of you. So when facing family, make sure that in terms of your communication, what you share, what you're showing is what you can stand by as yourself and in fact be and live as a living example that can be seen. Meaning where you have, for example, walked your process of writing, of self-forgiveness and of self-corrective application, and in fact changed your behavior, how you approach a point, how you direct a point, and how you speak a point, and have proven that to be constant and consistent. That would be an example where you can, for example, share with your family in terms of how you are, in fact, the living example of change. And I mean, you wouldn't even then have to share it with them because they'll see it. They'll see it and hear it in your words, the way you behave, the way you interact, the way you move. It will be seen. And that is the only way to get attention, if you will, from other human beings that is not yet starting their process, because your change in the totality of yourself is so physical, so real, that it cannot be denied. It cannot be, obviously it can be fought, it can be resisted, but it's kind of here. So in terms of the energy that's required by other human beings to try and fight it, to try and resist it, to try and negate it, is not going to hold up for very long, because you're not throwing the ball back in terms of giving them any fuel with knowledge and information, because you're the in fact living example, and you'll be able to stand by yourself, stable, clear, here, whatever comes. It's simply, this is who I am, this is how I do it, this is how I live. There's no reaction. That form of communication shows you that you've in fact changed. You're stable, you're standing, you're communicating directly. Now, you have to change yourself first within yourself, in that very tree that is you, in representing your family system, and the generations that's gone before you. And that's going to take time, process, and application, because it's in fact your process of changing you, where you're walking your conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind. Everything is seeping family. You are the personification and individualization of a total family point. Therefore, as you walk your process, you in a way automatically walk your family. However, you can specify your process in walking with your family and having a look at your reactions, your relationships with your family, and make sure that when you're interacting with them, and please interact with them normally, meaning be careful of the tendency to go into ego of, ooh, I have changed, and taking this very superior stance and splurging this knowledge and information towards them. I mean, obviously that's going to be met with resistance and friction, because you can see when someone's presenting something that they're not really in fact. So when you're interacting with your family, I mean, interact with them. Make it a process for you, where you check your own reactions, what comes up within you, what's your back chat, what personalities are you accessing, how are you changing your behavior, why are you changing your behavior. And as you're observing yourself with your family, you go back with yourself in your own time, and you work through your own process with your family within yourself first. And then as you go back to your family, as you go away, as you go back, as you go away, you more and more cross-reference your own process of facing family, which is facing yourself, within yourself, in assisting and supporting that self-change of walking out of the mind into the physical, of changing your tree into bearing the fruit of living of life that is in fact best for all. Alright, so here's just an analogy, practical reference of what it means to face family, which is simply, in essence, facing self. However, with family, you are going to get the more core, direct, real platforms, personalities, and manifestations within yourself that initiated your total mind, consciousness system design. So it's going to be experience within yourself with conflict, with resistance, with energy reactions and experiences, because it's so close to your platforms, your foundations that manifested the totality of who you are. So please, this is important to remember that this process is about self first, and you're only going to compromise your own process and that of others and time loop everything if you try and walk into it with ego and knowledge and information, and not an actual living example. Alright, thank you very much.